It's May and it's Mental Health Awareness Month for those who don't know. And these kind of like short interviews that I do, and it's focused around that subject specifically. And why? I think it's because of like situations I've had or lived in the past, and I think it's really important to talk about this and just put it out there because you never know who you're gonna help, right? And this is Maria Khan out here. I met her last year. We played in Saudi Arabia. Since the beginning, I felt that strong energy of her. She is a leader. We became very close. Literally, I felt like she was my sister. We would fight. We would like she would get on my foot. She would get mad. We would like cry. We would laugh. So it was just amazing to have her there, like that support, that system. Obviously, when you're like away from home, you sometimes you all you need is like a hug or someone to talk to or have that deep conversation. I think like she was that for me. I'm really thankful about her being in my life. It's been a while that I've seen her live in like her face, but yeah. Anyways, thank you. I really appreciate like this time that you're here. I was like really looking forward to talk to you. It's been what 3 months.
Linda, you're gonna make me cry.
We
Linda,
just started, Lena. Come on,
we just started. Come on. My
it's meant to
period's
be, right?
coming.
I love it.
I'm extra emotional.
This is us being vulnerable, so it's fine. It's fine. Cool. Somehow, every time would be like, how how are your feelings? That was a really important question for us, and yeah, that's what got us through our season, hard times in that matter. But anyways, I want you to make like a quick introduction about who you are, inside, outside the field, and yeah, it's all yours.
Yeah, thanks, Linda. So for those that don't know, Linda is my nickname for Sophia. She didn't like being called other things, so she was like, call me, give me a nickname that's nice and kind and gentle. So Linda, aka, is her nickname. So yeah, so just a little bit about myself. So I am first generation Pakistani American. I grew up in Denver, Colorado, and I went through, from a footballing point of view, I went through the US pathway. As a young girl, one of your goals as a young girl growing up in the US playing football is you want to play D1 soccer. I was fortunate enough to get an opportunity to play. I played at the University of Denver, and then I graduated in 2013. And at the time, I had no idea about professional football. The women's league in the US was really volatile at the time. One season it was on, the next season due to a lack of funding, consistent funding. So I ended up moving to the UAE where I got my master's, and I thought I was done playing competitive football until I got called up for the Pakistan national team. During this whole time, like I'm working full time, I'm working at Ford Motor Company and really just playing football for fun. And then when I got the call up, that's when I decided I kind of want to take football serious again. So at the age of 32, I signed my first professional contract to play football. So here we are, 2.5 years later, still playing professional football.
It's like a really unique story. You don't get that, for example, in the men's sides. Like that's nearly impossible, right? You like all this path that you've taken. Now you're like in that matter, like you're playing professional. That's amazing. Like at that age, is like some people
It's
are
really backwards. It's
retired.
really, really backwards.
But yeah,
Really
anyways, like
backwards.
how do you like balance being a professional athlete with your own personal life?
Yeah, I think for me, and before, really I don't know why, but I used to be like really embarrassed about saying, "Oh, I, only turned pro at 32," right? Just because of the stigma it might give my teammates or the coaches or just the clubs in general or my teams in general. So I used to be super embarrassed about it. But now looking back on it, and now that I've made it through a couple of, pro seasons, it's now one of those things where I'm super grateful that my journey happened this way because it allowed me to go into these teams that I'm playing in with a completely different lens. So that corporate experience that I got has really helped transform my thinking, and it's actually given me skills that I've been able to bring onto the football pitch and into my teams. if, let's say, for example, I didn't have that corporate experience, or those years working of not playing professional football, then maybe I wouldn't have had or have the impact that I have in the teams that I'm in and in the spaces that I'm in. So as far as balancing goes, this is actually the first time in my life where I've just gotten to focus on football. Right, I've always been a student athlete, or I've been playing football and then working, and playing football on the side for fun. So for me, I'm still trying to figure out what to do with my time, because as pro footballers, sometimes you get some days where you have some time to yourself. So just looking of how I can kind of fill in those hours.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you like tapping that industry of like Middle East, Asia. Like football is kind of like new, relatively new. You are a leader like outside of the field too. So that like your experience overall and being there has helped you, or has helped them, or where you're at, like grow in that matter, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the crazy part, is a lot of people think that, football in this part of the world is super new, but if you really strip it down, women have been playing football in Asia for a very long time. And I think now it's starting to get out there, because you're starting to see a lot of Asian players going and playing abroad, right? Whereas before that maybe wasn't very, very normal. But you get your Japanese players, you get your Chinese players, you get, some Australian players now even, right? That are really, putting Asian football on the map. And even if we, bring it to my most recent experience in Vietnam, Myanmar last year was the first time in their history that they qualified for a World Cup, right? For their women's side. That's now helping bridge the gap of, Asian football, Asian women's football, and the rest of the world. It's been an amazing experience to really understand the different parts of Asia and women's football in this continent, because it's so cool, and there's so many talented players, so many talented coaches, and so many people that are doing such amazing things in Asia, which is really nice to see.
That's amazing. What are the biggest like emotional challenges of being away from those loved ones and while competing at that level?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, you've met Omar a little bit, right? And so I know I count my blessings literally every day, because I know how fortunate I am to have a partner who's not just my best friend, my husband, he's a teammate, right? Like that's the way me and Omar refer to each other, as teammates. I'm so lucky to have somebody like that, because not only does he come from, a football background, but he really genuinely wants me to live my dream. Like it's so genuine, it's so authentic that he's pushing me to play. Like, I might be ready to, I might get an injury and I'm like, you know what, I'm ready to hang up. And he's
Yeah.
like, you're not done, baby girl. Like that's some miles. I think for me, like just really having that support. And even if you take, like, for example, my mother-in-law, right, who lives with us, from the culture that we come from, right? I come from a Pakistani culture, they come from an Arab culture, and in both of our cultures, it's very non-traditional for the wife to be away working or playing sports, doing that. For me to have this support system of where my husband and my mother-in-law and my parents are so supportive of what I do, like, it makes it so much easier. It provides that mental space to
Yeah,
do what I
100.
love to do. And I can only imagine, like, if I had a situation where, maybe my partner, my mother-in-law, or my parents didn't understand what this meant for me, and they were constantly hounding me and like not supporting me 100%, like I would struggle. So for me to have that, like, I'm so fortunate.
Yeah, 100%. Like having someone to support you is like it makes totally different like experience in your football career, even as like play.
100%. 100%.
Has being away from home, like your loved ones, ever impacted like your performance inside the field?
It has sometimes. If you, for example, like, in any marriage, going to be ups and downs. And, for me, if, let's say, for example, on game day, like me and Omar aren't on the best of terms, that might play into, my headspace, where my headspace is not just focused on, playing, but it's focused on making sure, oh shit, like I'm far away from home, I'm not in person. The ability to solve the issue quicker is a lot harder when you're away, right? Because you're having to coordinate your times, you're having to, make sure you have good Wi-Fi, you're having to make sure these applications work, because in some countries some applications don't work. So, the accessibility to be able to solve any issues that come up within, your personal relationships, it does become a little bit more challenging. Because again, if we were in person and living in the same house and living in the same country, you can kind of bite it in the butt really quick, right? Because it's like, you're in my face, I'm in your face, we're going to talk about it and we're going to fix it. Again, like I said, it does really help that Omar does come from a football background or even a sports background, because he does make sure that I'm in the best space mentally, to be able to perform, which is super helpful.
Yeah, obviously. How do you handle that, like loneliness or like those difficult moments when you can't have your family? I remember when we were in Saudi, for me it was Christmas, that
Mm.
obviously it's not celebrated, and it's like a huge season that I love, and I love to be like with friends and family and just giving. And I feel having you and like all the players, the American group that we had, it was way much like easier to like live with and be like around people, like having this like little Christmas dinner, even though you don't celebrate it, right?
But that's okay. And I think that's, to your point, right? How do you make it better, right? When you aren't around family and when you aren't around, your home, like especially during holidays or, key moments, during the year, it really is just making sure that you are able to build those relationships with your teammates. I think for me, that's something that I've been so grateful to be a part of, a team sport, because I have literally like 22 other girls that might be feeling the same way I think having that, they're your support away from home, and they're literally, some of them become your chosen family. I think that's why it is really important, regardless of what team you go to, really go to a team and be open minded and be open to getting to know people, right? Sometimes I feel like, some players do go to teams and they are really closed off, as, that's hard, right? Because when times do get tough, or, when things aren't going well, like, we all need someone to talk to. We all need that shoulder. So I think for me, it's just making sure that whenever you do go to any team, or when I ever go to any team, I really do try to make sure to build those authentic relationships.
Oh, that's so genuine from you, because that's how you are, Linda. I love it. As a captain and leader, how do you manage the pressures of the sport while also dealing with like those personal emotions?
Yeah, it's about just being able to show up. Just need people to make sure they feel that they're going to be okay, right? And that you got them. More than anything, there's more to life than how you perform on the field, right? Just because you have a shitty day doesn't make you a bad person and doesn't make you any less loved. And I think a lot of times, us as, high performing athletes, sometimes we forget about that. I'll never forget like my debut for Pakistan. It's my first international cap. I'm wearing the captain's armband, and Pakistan is playing India, biggest rivals. And I score an own goal in the first 20 minutes. So I got 70 plus minutes that I got to get through that game. And I'm like, you know what? I can't sit here, like, I can sit here and cry about it for, 70 plus minutes, or I can get on with it. Don't get me wrong. I definitely had my moment in halftime in the bathroom by myself. I like sprinted into the locker room, had my moment, and then I was like, now we need to switch back on, right? So again, as a captain, as a leader, for me, it's the ability to make sure that when things aren't going well, how do you react, right? Because if I react eager and nervous and anxious and aggressive, that's going to ripple onto my team. And that's what I don't want, right? So when things aren't going well, my teammates need to be able to look over to me and be like, It's all right. Like, we got this. We're going to be okay, right? There's worse things that happen in life. This is a very small part. Constantly reminding yourself of that.
Yeah, 100%. I think us athletes have like different mindset of like obviously being resilient on different situations and adapting, but sometimes we do forget like it's okay to be not
Okay.
to not be okay. Like we're so
Absolutely.
tough on ourselves of no, I'm good. Like I'm not showing like I can't I want to cry. I'm fine even if like inside I'm not feeling it, and we're so tough that we're just like yeah, I'm not going to say anything. But it's okay to be like that. Like overall in sports is not, or right now talking about women football, it's starting to open up like or having like help in each team. It's like that support system in each team to be there, right?
100%. And I think for me, if I look back in kind of the self work that I've done in the past, most hardest and most rewarding was actually going to therapy. And I noticed that after, X amount of time in therapy, I think I probably spent like a good part of 6 to 7 months in therapy. And for me, I noticed like instant enhancement in my performance, right? Because that mental side of me, physical was never the issue. Physical is rarely ever the issue. Like, okay, yes, you need to have like, some base level of fitness and technical ability and all that stuff, but really that ability to have that belief and have that self-confidence and talk kindly to yourself is a game changer. And that's something I'm still navigating, right? Like, there's definitely still moments where there's insecurities that creep in. You don't feel like you're good enough, or that there's that imposter syndrome of you don't belong. But really, that ability to talk kindly to yourself and remind yourself of your value and your worth, and what you bring to the spaces that you're in, like, is so important.
Yeah, and we never stop learning. That's life
No,
overall.
yeah.
And with all of this, have you ever had like or faced a moment of emotional burnout?
Yeah, this past season was tough. Yeah, this past season was really tough. More than anything, I think a learning for me. It's, again, like you said it earlier, like, it's okay to not be okay, but you just also have to make sure that you recognize that you're not okay, right? Because a lot of times I think we try to push it down, push it down, push it down, and be like, no, you're going to be okay, you're going to be okay. And then it just gets to a point where you see it, you see that state that you're in, that mental state that you're in, is impacting not just you, but it's coming off and impacting your relationships. You're starting to lash out on people. You have a shorter fuse. You don't want to listen to people, and you don't want to engage, and you don't want to be around people, and it just becomes like a ripple effect. Yeah, I'd say, this past season was really tough for me because, there was situations, stuff going on with the club. It wasn't something that was working for me as a player. So being able to do the hard thing and to remove yourself from that environment when that environment is something that you believe in, you want to help, you want to contribute to. But again, just having that courage to, okay, I know this is going to be hard right now, but once I get out on the other side of it, I know I'll be in a better place. So I think really just understanding, how you overcome it is really trying to remind yourself that, yeah, it's hard now, but I don't know how it's going to be after, but we'll figure it out when we get there.
It's always gonna be okay. The
Yeah,
storm
you'll
will pass.
always be okay.
And now
Totally.
you can't picture yourself like passing that situation, or like you feel so overwhelmed or like burnout, but it is gonna happen. You're
It'll
gonna
be
be okay.
okay. It'll be okay.
And overall, do you think like enough conversations are happening around mental health, especially like in women football?
I think they're starting to, but I also do think that, you know, I want to make sure that it just doesn't become like a checkbox item, for teams and for clubs and for governing bodies in women's. Like, if there is going to be that support and that awareness, like, let's make sure that, it is authentic and that it really is having impact. Us just sitting here and talking about it and saying what needs to be done is great. The next step is making sure that it gets done, right? And there's that actual application phase which is really important. And I think for me, that's where the impact comes in. So you have the idea phase, you have the application phase, and then you have the follow up phase. Okay, if there's a certain player that's kind of gone through this program or gone through this journey, we need to follow up with that player, not just forget about that player once, okay, we've offered the program, they've gone through it, they're done, and then leave it there. No, let's make sure that, because again, mental health is not something that just goes away. Like, even for therapy, for example, like there have been things like I'm good for this time of period of therapy, and then a new scenario comes up that I might need some guidance, right? And I need to revisit that. So again, you have to ask yourself, do I have the tools to make sure that I can get through this on my own, as well as having like the support of the spaces that you're in. Yeah, I think the conversations are being had, but now we need to take it to that next step of application and follow up.
Right. Yeah, and I feel like there's still a lot of people that maybe they're not like copying that, okay, what depression is, or like what anxiety or any mental health issue. Don't like believing that is an issue. Unfortunately, there's still like a lot of like where to navigate on like a cure or a better system or better support. How's it better? Like it's still a lot of like questions there. But I feel like the more we talk about and the more that we put it out there, people are gonna inform themselves. I hope they do
Absolutely.
through time.
Yeah, it's definitely about education because if you think of some of the coaches we had, their emotional intelligence is they don't know when their players are having a bad day. They don't know when their players are having a good day. Like they keep their tone the exact same, which again, there definitely needs to be better emotional intelligence from staff for sure.
100%. And to wrap it up, what advice would you give to other athletes, like balancing demanding careers with like long distance relationships, one, and like obviously balancing life through like the sport?
I would definitely say don't something that, I've really tried to actively do in the past, year or so is make sure that you focus on your lane, stay in your lane, and don't don't start comparing your lane to someone else's lane because in your lane there's no traffic. The second you start trying to merge into other people's lanes and, compare, that's when traffic starts to happen and that's when buildup starts to come. So stay in your lane, stay focused, and just remember, like, really, it's okay to not be okay. Find that person, like find your person that you feel you can be raw, unfiltered, your authentic self with because it goes a long way and it's needed.
Oh, I love it, Linda.
Thanks,
Any final
Linda.
thoughts? Tell us where people can follow your journey after this.
Yeah, yeah. So, first of all, thank you for, raising this topic and bringing it up because I know how important it is to you, which makes it important to all of us as well. So, keep doing it. And
I love it, Linda. I love you. I love you so much. I really appreciate this talk. I love us.